Now let's work on this delete functionality so that we could actually delete any expense which we want. So the delete functionality is going to be slightly different from the edit one, because in the edit one, you click on this edit form, you are going to be redirected to a new template, and that template is actually going to create a post request to post this data into the database. However, in case of delete, we want the delete functionality to be in a way that whenever you click a delete button, the post request should be submitted then and there itself, and the data should be directly gone from here. So we do not want any kind of an extra template or something like that over here. So in order to implement this particular delete functionality, first of all, you have to create a view, create a URL pattern, and then somehow associate that particular URL with the front end which you have up over here. So let's first work on creating that view. So let's go back to VS Code. Let's go to views.py and create a view for delete. So I would say dev delete. Now, obviously, whenever you're deleting an expense, you need a request as well as the ID of the item which you want to delete. And deleting logic is quite simple. You just take the expense, find out that expense from the ID, and just say expense.delete. So here I would say if request.method. So whenever we have a post request, in that particular case, let's simply go ahead, take the expense with an ID as ID. So I would say expense equals expense.objects.get, and get an expense with an ID where the ID is going to be equal to ID. And then I simply want to delete that expense. So expense.delete. That's it. That's how simple the deletion logic is. And once the deletion is complete, let's say I want to return redirects to a specific URL, which is index, which is the home page, which is all fine and good. So once we have this view created, let's associate it with a URL pattern. So the URL pattern for the delete is going to be exactly same as the one which we have for edit. So I would simply copy the same thing, paste it up over here, and change this thing to delete. The ID is going to be the same thing. Change the view to delete, and let's change the name to delete as well. Once this thing is done, we are pretty much good to go. So now what happens is whenever I go to some URL like, let's say /delete/1, let's see what happens. So if I go over there, nothing's happening here. And that's because we are making a GET request, and we should make a POST request in order to be able to delete this one. So here I would go inside the index.html, and for the delete link which we have here, I simply want to make a POST request. So that means I cannot have an ahref tag here. Instead, I need to have a fully fledged submit button or a form here. So here, instead of having a link inside of this one, I would create a fully fledged form in there inside the span tag. So I would create a form, and then I want to say that I want to make a post request. So method is going to be post. However, along with making this post request, we also want to go to the URL as well. So there are two things which we are doing here. First is we are visiting a URL. For that we need an ahref tag, and we also want to make a post request at that URL. That means we need a method as post. But we cannot include an ahref tag here. Therefore, we are going to specify the link in the action or the form action. So in here I want to say that I want to use the URL which is delete. So here, just as we have the URL for edit, I would add a URL for delete. And this is also going to get the expense ID for the expense which we want to delete. Therefore, I'm going to say expense.id. And as this is a form always needs to have a CSRF token as well. So I would say CSRF_token. And then inside this form, we are going to create a button which is going to be our actual delete button. So the type of this thing is going to be submit. And here we are going to add an image later. But for now, I'm just going to say delete over here. Now there's one problem though with this approach, and you'll soon be able to identify that problem as soon as we try deleting something. So let's first fix the typo here. This should be delete. And now let's see if this actually works. So I'll go back here. First of all, visit this URL, and now let's try deleting something. Now it's being deleted here, but the problem is that this delete functionality is working, but now on the same page, which is this page, we have two post requests. So we have a post request for this form, and we also have a post request for delete as well. Now inside our views, we want to explicitly distinguish between them, because if the request method is post, then this is actually happening, and if the request method is post in this case, then we are making a submit request. And to actually identify them inside the view itself, or in order to avoid any kind of bugs, there's one thing which we could do. You could go to this index form right here, and you could associate some sort of a name to the form which you're submitting. So right now, if I go to the index.html, I could go inside this button here, and I could say that the name is going to be delete. And I could actually make a check if the request which is coming, or the post request which is coming, if that's actually coming from the delete button, by just going inside the view. And I would say if request method is post, and if we have delete in the request.post. So what this does is that it also checks for the delete keyword in the request, and only if we have the delete keyword in the request, it's going to go ahead and execute this code. And right now we do have named this button as delete. That means our request method actually contains delete. So let's hit refresh and let's see if that's working. So as you can see, it's working absolutely fine now, and this should be working as well. So I could type an iPad, I could type in some amount, I could add a category, add that, and this is working as well. So now the delete functionality is working absolutely fine. And in the next lecture, now let's go ahead and let's add some image icons to these particular links and buttons which we have up over here, so as to improve the look and feel of our website. So let's do that in the next one.